During the Rwandan genocide in 1994, journalists documenting the aftermath kept encountering the same profile among the perpetrators. They weren't career criminals or lifelong extremists. They were teachers, nurses, church leaders, community volunteers, people their neighbors had described, sometimes just weeks earlier, as the kindest person they knew. A UN investigator later wrote that what disturbed him most wasn't the violence itself. It was how many of the people who committed it had spent their entire lives building a reputation for gentleness. The goodness wasn't a disguise, it was real. And the mechanism that converted it into something else operated so quickly and so completely that the people who knew them best couldn't reconcile the two versions as the same human being. But they were. They always were. And the thing that makes this impossible to dismiss is that the transformation didn't happen in spite of their goodness. It happened through it. Most people think of goodness and monstrousness as opposite ends of a spectrum, as if a person has to travel from one pole to the other, passing through some neutral middle ground on the way. That's the comfortable version. The uncomfortable version is that they're not opposites at all. They're built from the same raw material. Empathy, moral sensitivity, a heightened awareness of suffering, a deep sense of how things should be versus how they are. These are the qualities that make someone capable of extraordinary compassion. They are also the exact qualities that, when damaged or exhausted or betrayed badly enough, produce the most precise and devastating cruelty a human being is capable of. A person who has never understood others deeply can do harm, but it's clumsy harm, blunt, visible. A person whose goodness was real, who actually felt things, who actually understood people, knows exactly where the wounds are. And when the goodness stops governing where that knowledge is aimed, the result isn't ordinary cruelty, it's surgical. Nietzsche described this mechanism when he wrote about what he called ressentiment, a French word he used deliberately because no German equivalent captured what he meant. Ressentiment isn't anger. Anger burns and dissipates. Ressentiment is the slow, cold accumulation of unexpressed injury in a person who believes they deserve better than what they've received. It builds in people who feel deeply, who hold themselves to high moral standards, who absorb pain rather than discharge it, because those are the people who believe expressing their wound would make them less good. So the wound stays, and it compounds, and over time, it stops being a wound and starts becoming a worldview, one in which the person's suffering isn't just pain, but evidence of an unpaid debt the world owes them. When that debt gets large enough, the collection doesn't look like justice. It looks like something that would horrify the person they used to be. The transformation doesn't require a dramatic event. It requires a series of small internal permissions, each one so reasonable the person granting it doesn't register the shift. The first permission is to stop forgiving without acknowledgement. The second is to start keeping a private ledger of what's been done to you, not out of bitterness, just clarity. The third is to begin interpreting other people's behavior as a pattern rather than isolated mistakes. By the fourth or fifth, the original wound is almost irrelevant. What's taken its place is a philosophy people like me get taken from, and the rational response is to stop giving. That philosophy doesn't feel like corruption. It feels like wisdom earned through experience. The monster never thinks it's a monster. It thinks it finally grew up. Nietzsche warned that whoever fights monsters should see to it that in the process, he does not become one, and that if you gaze long enough into the The abyss gazes into you. This isn't poetry. It's a mechanical description of what happens when a person's moral attention stays fixed on the harm they've experienced for too long. The empathy that once faced outward slowly rotates inward. It becomes self-empathy that hardens into self-righteousness. The person stops feeling with others and starts feeling exclusively for themselves. And because their emotional machinery is still fully operational, the cruelty they become capable of carries all the intelligence and sensitivity of the goodness it replaced. It isn't a loss of feeling, it's a redirection. This is why the kindest people produce the worst monsters. A person who was never particularly empathetic has a low ceiling for cruelty. They can be selfish, indifferent, casually harmful, but they can't be devastating, because devastation requires understanding. It requires knowing exactly what someone needs to feel safe, and then removing it. It requires mapping the architecture of someone's trust, and knowing which wall to pull to collapse the structure quietly. That precision only exists in people who once used the same map for the opposite purpose. There's a specific point in the transformation where the person crosses a line they can't see. It's the moment they stop feeling guilty about something that would have destroyed them a year earlier. A harsh word they don't regret. A withdrawal of warmth that was calculated, not protective. The absence of guilt doesn't register as alarming because the internal narrative has already been rewritten. They're not becoming cruel. They're becoming strong. They're not punishing. They're holding a standard. Every step comes dressed in the language of growth, and the person rarely sees what's happening until someone who remembers the original version says the thing no one wants to hear. You're not who you were. The response is usually the most frightening part. They don't deny it. They say they know, and they call it progress. Nietzsche described the person who has been broken by their own goodness as the most pitiable figure in human life, because they have all the machinery for extraordinary living and no longer any use for it except destruction. He wrote that the man of ressentiment is neither upright nor naive. He knows how to keep silent, how not to forget, how to wait, how to be provisionally self-deprecating and humble. That description isn't a villain. It's a patient person, a careful person, a person who, from the outside, still looks like the good one in the room, while internally, every interaction is being filtered through a ledger that is never going to balance. The reason this matters is that the transformation doesn't announce itself. You don't feel yourself becoming harder and think, I'm becoming a monster. You feel yourself becoming harder and think, I'm finally learning. The goodness you used to lead with starts to feel naive. The forgiveness starts to feel weak. The openness starts to feel like a liability. And each shift feels like maturity, like seeing things clearly for the first time. The monster never arrives as a monster. It arrives as the smartest version of you, the one that's finally done being taken advantage of. The people in Rwanda who committed acts their neighbors couldn't believe, they didn't experience a break from who they were. They experienced what felt like a completion of who they were. Years of patience, tolerance, and suppressed injury didn't disappear. They reorganized. The same moral sensitivity that had kept them gentle for decades powered the conviction that what they were doing was justified. The goodness was still in the room. It had just changed its function. It was no longer the thing that restrained them. It was the thing that gave them permission. If you recognize any of this, the ledger, the hardening, the the slow reinterpretation of your own coldness as growth. The only intervention that works is honesty, not with anyone else, with yourself, about what you've stored, about what you've forgiven without actually releasing, about the gap between the person you present and the person who lives behind the presentation. That gap is where the transformation builds. And the only thing that stops it is dragging what's in there into a light it didn't ask to be seen in.